The sun had not fully risen when the alarm rang through human base. 9 guards rushed to the main gate, weapons ready, eyes sharp. Everyone expected a raid. Maybe pirates, maybe forest creatures trying to break in. But what they saw made no sense. A huge predator, black fur, long teeth, and golden eyes stood just outside the gate. It was one of the wild forest beasts known to attack on sight, but this one wasn't attacking. It just stood there, breathing slowly. Behind it, a smaller creature peeked out. A cub. The soldiers stared. Some aimed their rifles. "Hold your fire," a voice commanded. Commander Rayla stepped forward. She wore her armor, but her helmet was off. Her sharp brown eyes studied the beast. It didn't growl. It didn't move. Carefully, it pushed the small cub forward with its head. Then, without sound, it turned and disappeared into the trees. Rayla lowered her weapon. "Is that real?" she asked softly. A young soldier, Private Keel, nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The beast left the cub. It didn't even look back. Rayla walked to the gate, keeping her body calm. The small cub was shaking, its eyes wide, but it didn't seem scared of her. It was no more than a few days old. Tiny claws, soft fur, and a mark on its side that looked like a scar. But there were no injuries. Just fear. The base's medics came and checked the cub. "It's healthy," the doctor said, "but it's like it knew we wouldn't hurt it." Rayla stood silent. "Wild beasts don't just give away their young," she said. "Especially not to us. Something's wrong." News spread through the base quickly. Everyone talked about the predator and its cub. Some thought it was a trap. Others said it was a message, but no one had an answer. Rayla called a meeting with the science team. Dr. Kent, an old and tired man with thin glasses, spoke first. "We've seen changes in forest behavior the last few weeks. The predators have gone quiet. Not many sightings. And now this ... Rayla looked at the screen. A live feed showed the cub resting in a soft corner of the medbay. It seemed calm now, eating, even purring softly. "Could it be sick?" someone asked. "No," Kent replied. "It's not just health. It's choice. That predator chose to bring the cub here." "Why?" Rayla asked. Kent stared at her for a moment, then slowly said, "Because they have no one else." That night Rayla couldn't sleep. She walked through the quiet halls of Base 9 and checked the outer walls. Fog had started to crawl in from the trees, cold and heavy. She stood at the wall, looking out. The forest was still, too still. Then she heard it, a deep roar. Not like a normal predator, it was lower and longer, almost like thunder mixed with pain. The sound made the ground shake slightly. Lights in the tower flickered somewhere in the medbay. The cub began to cry. Rayla rushed inside and found the small creature huddled in the corner, shaking. The medics tried to calm it, but nothing worked. Only when Rayla herself picked it up and whispered softly did the cub quiet down. That moment changed something in her. The cub nuzzled her chest like it knew her, as if it had been waiting for her. In the command center, more strange reports arrived. Wildlife cameras outside the base had stopped working. Scout drones had gone silent. Heat signatures in the deep forest were gone. "All life out there is either hiding," Kent said, "or already gone." Rayla looked at the screen again. The cub was sleeping now, safe and warm. But she couldn't shake the feeling inside her. This wasn't a gift. It was a warning, a cry for help. She turned to her team. "Double the guards," she ordered. "Septia all entry points, and send a drone out by sunrise. I want to know what's in those woods." "Yes, ma'am," they replied. As she left the command center, she whispered to herself, "Something scared the monsters, and now they're running to us." The stars above Base 9 were clear, but the darkness between them felt heavier than ever. Something was coming, and the wild had chosen humans to protect what they could not. The next day started with silence, but it didn't stay that way. Private Keel was on watch duty at the South Tower when he saw something moving near the forest line. He grabbed his binoculars and froze. "Commander Rayla, you need to see this." Rayla arrived at the tower with her boots still muddy from the morning patrol. She took the binoculars and looked through. There, just outside the trees, stood not one but 3 predators. Each was a different kind. One looked like a silver panther with glowing stripes. Another was a scaled creature with long horns, and the third had wings folded tight against its body. But none of them were attacking. None of them growled. Each had a small cub beside it. Rayla watched in silence as the 3 predators slowly walked forward. They didn't run. They didn't try to hide. They stopped just 20 feet from the gate. Then, one by one, they nudged their cubs forward and turned back into the forest. "Open the gate," Rayla said firmly. "Commander, are you sure?" Keel asked. "Yes, let them in, but keep weapons ready." The gate opened just enough for the small cubs to enter. The moment they were inside, the gate shut again. The young ones looked around nervously but didn't cry or scream. They just huddled together near the entrance like they were waiting for someone to tell them what to do. The medics carried them gently to the same area as the first cub. They checked each one. No sickness, no wounds, just tired, hungry and scared. Dr. Kent stood in the medbay doorway shaking his head. "This is not normal," he said softly. "They're coming in peace. That's not what predators do." Rayla nodded. "I know." By nightfall, 2 more predators had arrived. A total of 6 cubs now rested in Base 9, all from different species, all trusted humans more than their own kind. The base was no longer just a military outpost, it was starting to feel like a nursery. The soldiers didn't know how to act. These were dangerous creatures, but somehow, when they were young, they looked innocent, they played, they made small sounds. They even slept curled up next to human guards without fear. Something in them had changed, or maybe something in the forest had forced that change that night. A scout drone finally returned from the deep forest. The images it brought shocked everyone. Large areas of the jungle were empty. No animals, no nests, no sound. The drone had flown silently through places where hundreds of creatures once lived, and now there was only silence. But the last few seconds of video showed something worse, a black shape moving too fast for the camera to catch. It had too many legs, no visible mouth, and glowing blue eyes. The video feed cut off after that. Dr. Kent replayed the footage again and again. "This is not natural," he said. "These creatures are not from Earth. Or if they are, they've been hiding from us for centuries." Rayla leaned forward. "Do you think they're the reason predators are bringing their cubs to us?" "Yes," Kent said. "But not because we're stronger. Because we're the only ones left who can fight them." Rayla stayed quiet. She looked at the cubs on the screen. They were sleeping peacefully now, unaware of the terror moving outside. Then she asked the one question that had been in her mind since the first beast arrived. Why do they trust us? Later that night, Rayla walked to the cubs' room alone. She sat near the sleeping creatures. One of them, the small silver panther cub, opened its eyes and looked at her. It didn't flinch, it didn't growl, it walked over and gently pressed its head against her arm. She felt its heartbeat. She closed her eyes and whispered, "We don't even understand your language. But somehow, you knew we would protect you." The base was quiet again, but Rayla felt the pressure building. This was not the end. This was the beginning. The next morning, Base 9 woke up to a sound that made every soldier grab their weapon. A roar from the forest, but from inside the base. One of the cubs was standing up, facing the door, growling. The others soon followed, forming a circle. Their eyes glowed softly. The lights flickered. "What are they doing?" Keel asked. Then someone shouted from the gate. "Motion detected. Something's out there." Rayla rushed to the wall and looked. Through the scope, dozens of red eyes blinked back from the trees, but these weren't predators. They were something else, something watching. The forest stood still, like it was holding its breath. Commander Rayla stared through the scope on the wall. She saw dozens of red eyes blinking deep in the trees. They weren't normal animal eyes. They didn't move like predators. They didn't glow with curiosity or fear. They just stared. "Infrared sensors show no body heat," said Private Keel from the tower. "Whatever's out there, it's cold. Too cold." Rayla narrowed her eyes. "Keep the gate sealed. No one leaves. Not until we know what we're facing." Down below, the 6 predator cubs still stood in a circle. Their small bodies were tense, their eyes glowing faintly. Some made soft clicking sounds like they were talking to each other in a language no human could hear. Dr. Kent rushed into the control room with a data tablet in hand. "You need to see this," he said, his face pale. He played a clip from a drone that had gone offline just an hour ago. The drone had flown near the shadowed part of the forestan area humans never entered. At first, there was only darkness and broken trees. Then, something moved, a shape, large and smooth, like melted black glass. It slid across the forest floor without touching it. It had no face, just a round, open mouth that never closed and eyes, glowing eyes across its body, blinking out of rhythm. The drone tried to back away, but the creature looked up. In a second, the drone signal cut off. "They're not animals," Kent whispered. "They're not even from this ecosystem." Rayla looked at the paused video. "Then what are they?" "Harvesters," Kent said. "I think they're not hunting for food. They're collecting life, copying it, replacing it." Rayla's stomach turned. "You're saying, these things don't just kill?" Kent nodded. "Slowly they take, then something else comes back in its place." By evening, the eyes in the forest were gone, just vanished. No footprints, no sound, only the soft wind brushing through the broken trees. But Rayla didn't relax. The cubs hadn't moved from their circle. They were quiet now, but alert, watching the forest as if waiting for something worse. That night, strange things started happening. The lights in Sector 4 flickered and died. A power line burst with no warning. The security cameras glitched, then showed frames of empty halls that weren't empty. One camera showed a figure walking, but the hallway was sealed. At midnight, the emergency siren rang out. A soldier was missing. Private Dax, who had been on duty near the cubs' sleeping quarters, had vanished. His weapon was on the floor, bent like it had been stepped on. No blood, no struggle. Just gone. Rayla checked the footage again and again. There was a shadow on the wall, a strange shape that moved without sound. It came from a blind spot. It stood behind Dax for 3 seconds, then both the shadow and the soldier disappeared. Rayla tightened her jaw. "We're not just being watched, we're being tested." The next morning, Dr. Kent revealed another secret. Years ago, he had worked on an experiment with predator brainwaves in an attempt to build a translator to understand their communication patterns. The project had failed. But now, when he ran the translator near the cubs, it picked up something. Not words but images, feelings, shared fear. They're speaking to each other, Kent said, his hands shaking, and they're afraid of the shadows. More than anything they've ever faced. One of the images repeated. In the scan was a deep pit, a dark place with no sound and no sky. Inside it, something moved slowly, patiently they call it. The mouth below, Kent whispered. It doesn't eat, it absorbs. Rayla stood in front of her soldiers that afternoon. Her voice was firm, but her eyes showed the truth. We don't know what's coming, she said, but the predators trust us. They brought their young here for a reason. The base was silent. She looked at the cubs, who now followed her like she was one of their own. We've protected human colonies. We've fought wars. But this is something different. This is not about territory. This is not about survival. She paused. This is about saving what's left of nature. Later that evening, the sky turned red before the sunset. The trees stood like broken bones in the distance. From the north wall, a soldier screamed. Movement. Rayla ran up the stairs. In the distance, something rose from the ground. Not a creature, a shape like a tower made of skin and bone. It had no top, no bottom, and around it the forest bent. One of the cubs growled for the first time, deep and long, a sound no one expected from such a small body. Rayla whispered, "That's not part of this world." And just then, the cubs crackled, a voice faint, from a scout patrol that had vanished 2 days ago. "This is Echo Team. Don't trust the light. Don't look at their eyes." Then silence. Only one thing was clear now. Something old had woken up, and the wild new humans were the last ones brave enough to fight it. It was early morning when the alarms rang again, but this time no one raised their weapons. No one ran for cover, because what they saw walking toward Base 9 was not an enemy. It was him. The soldiers on the wall stood frozen. The same went for the people inside. They all knew this predator. It was massive, twice the size of a bear, with thick black fur, scars across its chest, and one glowing yellow eye. The other eye was missing, a deep wound across that side of the face. This was the alpha leader of the forest predators, and he was walking straight toward the gate. Alone, Commander Rayla rushed to the north tower and looked down. The alpha wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. His claws were out, but not raised. And beside him limped a small cub. It looked weak, struggling to walk. The alpha gently pushed the cub forward with his nose. Rayla took a breath, opened the gate. Keel hesitated. "Commander, are you sure?" "Yes," she said. He came to talk. The heavy gate opened slowly. The alpha stepped in. The cub moved to the side and lay down near the others. But the alpha didn't leave like the others. He stood tall, watching Rayla, breathing heavy, but calm. Then something strange happened. A soft beep came from the alpha's neck. A small metal device blinked blue under his thick fur. Rayla's eyes widened. "It's a neural link," said Dr. Kent, arriving beside her. "That's one of our early prototypes from the Animal Translator Project 15 years ago." The alpha stared at them. Then the device clicked, and a voice filled the room. Not the alpha's real voice, but a mechanical translation. Deep, slow, heavy with emotion. "You are the last fire." The soldiers froze. The room went silent. The alpha continued. "The forest dies. The ground speaks no more. The sky listens but does not help. They came from under. We tried to fight. We failed." Rayla took a step forward. "Who are they? Shadows, ones who drink the soul, who wear our shapes, who erase our kind." The alpha lowered his head. His huge body trembled. "We trust humans. We have seen what you do. You fight not just for your own. You fight for what is right." He turned toward the cubs. "Our young cannot survive the dark, but you carry light." The device beeped again and went silent. Everyone stood still. No one had ever heard a predator speak. No one had ever seen one ask for help. Rayla looked at the alpha. He had walked into a human base with no army, no weapons, only his wounded cub, and now he bowed his head. She stepped forward. "You came to protect your future," she said softly. "And now we must protect ours too." She turned to Dr. Kent. "Can we trust this device?" "Yes, it's real and old and it's working." "Then get it off him," she said. "We're going to make it better." Hours later, in the lab, the science team worked fast. They improved the link, boosted the signal, and connected it to their command network. Now, the alpha could speak freely through the system. Rayla sat across from him, watching his movements. He was old, tired, but still powerful. "Why didn't you come sooner?" she asked. The alpha blinked slowly. "We tried, but they watched. They knew our steps. Only now do they sleep. Only now could I run." Rayla leaned forward. "What do they want? Not land, not blood. They want memory. They eat what you are. You forget, and they replace," Dr. Kent whispered. "That's why our scouts didn't come back. That's why the forest is empty. They're not just killing, they're replacing life with copies that obey." Rayla's heart pounded. "They want to become the new world," she said. "Yes," the alpha answered, "but they fear one thing." "What?" she asked. "You." That night Rayla called a full base meeting. Every soldier, medic, and engineer gathered. The cubs were there too, sitting quietly beside the alpha. She stepped up to the front. "We are not just protecting some baby animals," she said. "We are protecting the last voice of nature. The last breath of the wild. She pointed to the Alpha. They trust us. Even after we hunted them. Even after we built walls through their forests. When the shadows came, they didn't run to each other. They ran to us. The crowd was silent. Rayla looked around. Whatever is coming, she said, we face it together, human and beast. Because if we lose now there will be nothing left to remember who we were. The soldiers didn't cheer, they didn't clap, but they all stood a little taller. The line between human and predator had been erased. Now they were one side, standing against something that came from the dark. Midnight fell over Base 9 like a heavy blanket. Cold wind blew across the empty outer grounds. Inside, most soldiers were still awake. No one felt safe enough to sleep. Commander Rayla stood in the control room, staring at the radar screens. The sensors showed nothing. No movement, no heat, no sound, but deep in her chest, she felt that something was coming. The Alpha sat outside, near the gate. The cubs slept beside him, closed like one body. Even in sleep, they twitched their ears and growled softly, sensing danger. Private Keel sat beside Rayla. His fingers tapped the table nervously. I hate this, he muttered. The waiting, the silence. Rayla nodded. It's the same before every storm. Suddenly all the lights in Sector 3 went out. Power failure. Someone shouted. Then the alarms screamed. Breach in the south corridor. Unknown entity detected. Rayla grabbed her rifle. Lock all gates. Move teams to the south side. Don't engage unless I give the order. Soldiers ran through the halls. The backup lights glowed red, painting the walls in blood-colored flashes. In the medbay, doctors secured the cubs in protective chambers. The Alpha growled low and long. In the security room, the screen showed the south corridor long empty. Quiet then. Something flickered. A shadow, no shape, no face. Just a ripple, like heat over fire. The camera's glitched. Then the creature appeared. It didn't walk, it floated smooth, silent. Its body was like black mist, wrapped in bones. Glowing blue eyes blinked across its chest and arms. It had too many limbs, too many joints, and it was inside the base. Fire team to Corridor 6, Rayla ordered. Contain it. But when the soldiers arrived, they stopped. The shadow was standing still watching them. It made no sound. Then it moved, not toward them but toward the cubs. Block its path, Rayla shouted. It's going for the young. The soldiers opened fire. Bullets passed through the creature like wind through smoke. It didn't bleed. It didn't flinch. It kept floating forward. Dr. Kent screamed from the control room. It's not real. It's not matter, it's a projection. The body is still outside. Rayla didn't care. She ran toward the cub chamber, heart pounding. Inside the medbay, the cubs were awake. They growled and hissed. Their eyes glowed with strange light, faint pulsing. The Alpha stood between them and the door, claws out. The shadow creature slid through the wall like mist. Then it stopped. For the first time it looked confused. The cubs had formed a circle again, just like before. But this time, something was different. They were glowing. Soft white light spread from their small bodies. Lines of light connected them in a strange shape on the floor, like a symbol from another world. Rayla rushed in and stopped in her tracks. The shadow reached forward, and then something happened that no one expected. The shadow screamed, not a normal sound. Not from its mouth. It screamed inside their heads. Soldiers dropped to their knees. Keel cried out. Dr. Kent fainted. Rayla held her head, fighting the pressure. The walls shook. Light shattered. The air went cold, but the cubs stood strong. The light from their bodies grew brighter. It pushed the shadow back like fire pushes smoke. The creature screamed again and vanished. Gone. Silence returned to the base. The only sound was the cubs breathing. An hour later, the damage was clear. 2 soldiers had collapsed and wouldn't wake up. One was found staring at a wall, eyes wide, whispering something no one understood. The Alpha had returned to the gate, his body shaking. He had seen the shadow and survived. Rayla stood in the command center, her hands tight on the table. They're not just here to destroy, she said. They're here to break the bond between us and the wild. Dr. Kent sat up slowly. His head hurt, but his mind was clear. I saw something, he said. When the cubs used their light, I saw inside. The creature. Rayla looked at him. What did you see? Us, Kent whispered. Copies of us, memories of us. But broken. Empty. They were trying to understand what makes us human, what makes us alive. But they can't. He pointed at the cubs on the screen. They fear what they can't copy. They fear connection. Later that night, Rayla stood at the wall, looking out at the dark forest. The Alpha sat beside her. You said they fear us, she said. The Alpha nodded. They fear unity. They fear light. But now, they will send more. Rayla took a deep breath. Then we send a message to. She looked down at the cubs. We're not just protecting them anymore, she said. They're protecting us too. Far out in the forest, a strange hum echoed through the trees. The creatures were waking up again. But now, something had changed. They had felt pain. They had felt fear. For the first time, they had been stopped, and the war had just begun. 2 days after the attack, the forest was still quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that didn't feel safe. It felt like something was watching, waiting for the right moment to return. Inside Base 9, the cubs were growing stronger. Their bond with the humans had deepened. They didn't just trust Rayla anymore, they followed her. listened to her voice, and even responded to hand signals like trained scouts. But Commander Rayla knew the next step wasn't defense, it was attack. "We have to find where they come from," she said in the strategy room. "We need to go inside their world before they come back with more." The Alpha stood beside her, silent but alert. His single golden eye watched the map on the screen. He nodded slowly. "There is a place," he said through the translator. "The trees do not grow there. The ground is hollow. That is where they sleep." Dr. Kent pulled up satellite images. "It's a dead zone. Thick fog, no signal, no heat, no life signs for miles." "Then that's where we go," Rayla said. At dawn, Rayla gathered her team, 5 elite soldiers, Dr. Kent, and 2 trained drones. Surprisingly, the Alpha insisted on coming too. "We need him," Rayla said. "He knows the land better than any sensor." The cubs howled softly as the team prepared to leave. One of them, a blackford, one with silver eyes, touched Rayla's boot gently, as if saying goodbye. She smiled, then turned to her team. "We move fast, we don't split up, we don't chase shadows." They left the safety of Base 9 behind and entered the dark zone. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. The trees were twisted, bent toward the ground like they had given up. There were no sounds, no birds, no wind, no movement. Fog hugged the ground like a living thing. Private Keel scanned with his tracker. No life, nothing. "It's like the earth is asleep." Rayla moved carefully. Her boots crunched over dead leaves, but even the leaves didn't feel right. They were soft, too soft, like they weren't made of plant matter anymore. Then, just before sunset, they saw it, a pit, massive and wide, at least 200 feet across. The ground around it was cracked and black, as if burned. The fog above it didn't rise, it fell, like smoke in reverse. Dr. Kent whispered, "This is the hive." The Alpha growled softly. His fur stood up. His muscles tensed. Rayla gave the signal. The team moved forward. They used climbing ropes to descend into the pit. The walls were smooth, but not made of stone. They pulsed, like muscle, like something alive. Inside the pit, the air was thick and cold. There were tunnels everywhere, some large, some narrow. They followed the largest one. It led them deeper, underground, into the belly of something ancient. Then they found it, a massive chamber filled with eggs, hundreds of them. Each egg was tall as a man, covered in black slime. Inside, strange shapes floated. But when Rayla stepped closer, her blood turned cold. Inside one of the eggs was a human. Not just any human. It was Private Dax, the soldier who went missing. His eyes were closed, his skin pale, but he was alive, or something that looked like him was alive. "They're not just replacing us," Kent said. "They're copying us. They grow replicas, test them, see which version obeys, then send them back to replace the real." Rayla raised her rifle. "We burn them, all of them." Suddenly the walls shook. The eggs began to tremble. A low hum filled the chamber. Lights flashed, blue, sharp, unnatural. "They're waking up," Keel shouted. The Alpha roared and took position near the exit. Rayla threw down a fire charge. "Plant the bombs. We end this now." Soldiers rushed to plant charges around the chamber. Kent downloaded as much data as he could from the strange, glowing crystals on the walls. Then the shadows came. Not one, not two, dozens. They flowed out of the walls like liquid darkness, blue eyes flashing, arms too long, fingers like blades. Rayla shouted, "Fall back." Now they fought their way out, bullets, fire, light, but nothing slowed the creatures until the Alpha stood his ground. He roared louder than he ever had before. His voice echoed through the tunnels like thunder. The shadows stopped for a second. Just 1 second, but it was enough. Rayla hit the remote. The charges exploded. The entire chamber went up in fire. Eggs burned, tunnels collapsed. The roar of destruction filled the pit. The team climbed out, smoke and ash behind them. The Alpha was the last one to escape. His back was burned, his legs bleeding, but he smiled, a predator's smile. They returned to Base 9 at dawn, tired, hurt, but alive. The cubs rushed to the gate when they saw Rayla. They jumped and growled softly, circling her like excited children. She knelt down and hugged them. "We did it," she whispered. "We stopped the hive." But deep inside, she knew it wasn't over. Dr. Kent confirmed it that afternoon. "There are more pits," he said. That was only one of many. Rayla looked at the forest again. And for the first time it didn't look like just trees, it looked like a battlefield. 1 week after the pit was destroyed, Base 9 had changed. The soldiers no longer saw the predator cubs as creatures to fear. They were family now. The young ones played in the open areas, trained with the guards, and even slept beside the human. Children who lived in the base trust had grown like a flame in the cold. But Commander Rayla didn't rest. She stood each day on the wall, watching the forest, waiting. Dr. Kent had confirmed there were more pits, many more. Some were deeper, some were still waking up, and they were learning, changing faster. "They're starting to hide their energy," he said. "If they evolve just a little more, even our sensors won't detect them." Rayla knew it was only a matter of time before they returned. But one question still haunted her. Why us? Why humans? Why had the predators, creatures of the wild, who once saw humans as invaders, now handed over their young their hope for protection. That answer came one cold morning. The Alpha was dying. His body had been badly burned during the hive escape. The medics did what they could, but he was old, tired, and ready to rest. Rayla sat beside him in the quiet medbay, no machines. YS just her, the Alpha, and one of the cubs curled up at his side. The translator blinked softly as the Alpha spoke in a weak voice. Long ago, we feared you. Rayla looked at him. I know. We watched you from the trees. We saw fire fall from your sky. Machines tear the earth. Noise, steel, poison. He coughed, low and rough. But then, we saw something else. Rayla leaned closer. What a human child, lost in the wild. Alone, weak, no claws, no teeth. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them slowly. A mother panther found the child. She should have eaten it, but she didn't. Rayla's eyes widened. She brought the child to the edge of the forest, waited until the humans came, watched as the child was taken home. He looked at the ceiling that night. We knew you were not only destroyers, you were protectors too. Rayla's throat tightened. We do not trust easily. But when the shadows came, when they started replacing us, we remembered that story. He turned his head toward her, his single golden eye shining softly. That is why we brought you our young. The Alpha passed later that night. Rayla stayed with him until his last breath. The cubs howled together, a long sad cry that echoed through the basin into the trees. It was the cry of goodbye, but also a promise. A week later, Rayla stood before every human in the base, civilians, soldiers, scientists, and now, predators. She wore no helmet, no armor, just the dark jacket of her command uniform. This war is not about land, she said. It's not about species. It's not even about survival. She looked at the cubs beside her, now stronger, sharper, and still full of light. It's about memory, about what kind of world deserves to survive. A world of silence and copies, or a world of life and choice. She raised her voice. We are the last fire, the last voice. And we fight not because we must, but because we choose to. The soldiers stood taller. The cubs growled in unity, and the forest listened. Over the following weeks, Rayla launched small missions with mixed teams, humans and predators working side by side. They destroyed 2 more pits. The creatures inside had grown smarter. Some could speak like humans. Some even tried to trick them using faces of lost soldiers. But the bond between Rayla's team was too strong to be broken. Every mission brought new scars and new strength. Rayla knew the real war was still ahead, but the wild had chosen humans not because they were perfect. They were chosen because they were stubborn, because they didn't give up, because when everything else ran or hid, humans stood their ground. One evening, Rayla sat near the outer fence, watching the sky turn orange. A cub curled beside her now, nearly a full-grown beast, but still calm near her. Dr. Kent sat nearby, drinking something warm. You ever think we weren't supposed to survive? He asked. Rayla smirked. All the time. He nodded. And yet, we keep doing it. She looked at the cub, then at the stars. No one remembers the names of those who ran, she said, only the ones who stayed behind to fight. She stood up, her voice steady. And that's what we are now. Somewhere far, far from Base 9. Deep under a mountain where no sun had ever touched. The hive stirred again. New creatures were forming, smarter, faster, more silent than before. But for the first time in their long, slow awakening, they remembered pain and fear, because the wild had found protectors, because the fire still burned, and because the cubs of the world now had warriors made of steel, blood, and hard-cold humans. The end. Complete story in 7 parts. Would you like now? YouTube description for the full story. SEO tags/hashtags for your channel. HFY Defenders. Leonardo AI prompts for generating scenes from all 7 parts. Just tell me what you need. You said, Leonardo AI Yakisi BAI tool Kalai Harpod QA separate detailed prompt B Bana du Chat GPT said, Yahan Harpod Kilai separate detailed prompts Daige Hain Joe Up Leonardo AI Yakisi B advanced image generation AI tool main. Use car socked Hain. The prompts suspenseful, cinematic or sci-fi style main design Kige Hain. Talk visuals APK HFY Defenders YouTube story K-Mood K-Mutabik Hoon. Part 1. The first cub at the gate prompt, a futuristic human military base in the jungle at sunrise. A massive steel gate stands open slightly. A strange predator cub with glowing eyes and alien fur stands just outside the gate, looking up with curiosity. Human soldiers in armor watch nervously from the wall. Fog surrounds the trees in the background. Cinematic lighting, dramatic shadows, sci-fi atmosphere. Part 2. More beasts, more cubs prompt. 3 different alien predators, 1 silver panther with glowing stripes, 1 horned scaled beast, and 1 winged reptilian creature, each pushing their small cubs gently toward a human base gate. Human soldiers on the wall stare in shock. Early morning mist. Cub expressions show fear and trust. Futuristic base in background. Jungle around them. Tense and peaceful scene. Part 3. The shadows in the forest prompt. A dark alien forest. At night with dozens of red glowing eyes peering from the trees. The human base is lit with red alert lights. A strange, tall shadow creature with blue glowing eyes and multiple limbs begins to phase into the base corridors, a real mist-like form. Inside, predator cubs form a glowing circle, radiating soft light. Tense horror sci-fi feel. Part 4. The message from the Alpha prompt. A massive battle-scarred predator. Alpha with one glowing golden eye walks toward a human base. Beside a limping cub, the Alpha wears a small neural translation device around its neck. Human soldiers open the gate cautiously. Tense piece. Sci-fi military base behind them. Jungle mist surrounding. Emotional and respectful mood. Part 5. The first attack prompt. Inside a sci-fi hallway. A shadowy alien creature with no clear shape and glowing blue eyes phases through walls. Heading toward glowing predator, cubs forming a protective circle. Soldiers fire, but bullets pass through. The cubs glow brighter and push the creature back with light. High tension. Glowing symbols on the floor, flickering emergency lights. Part 6. Into the heart of the dark zone prompt. A massive pit in the forest, pulsing with blue and black light. Human soldiers with rifles and a giant predator Alpha descend into it with ropes. Inside the hive, hundreds of tall black eggs filled with copies of humans and beasts suspended in slime. Blue glowing crystals on the wall, surreal horror scene inside an alien nest. Part 7. Why they chose us prompt. Inside a futuristic medbay. The old Alpha lies dying on a padded surface, a cub sleeping beside him. Commander Rayla sits quietly at his side, listening to the Alpha speak through a glowing translator. The scene is quiet, emotional, and warm, with soft lights and jungle plants in the background. Final farewell. Outside the base, cubs howl to the sky, stars above.